Now, hello, everyone. Beginning of December, countdown to Christmas. Just want to do a little bit different this week. I'm not going to go over what has happened in the mortgage market or property market in November, but instead going to give it a bit lighter and go over the predictions, some good, some bad, and some ugly, as you say, for what I made for 2024. And predictions for 2025 will be coming in January. Okay. Happy Christmas, everyone. Look forward to having you get into a home in 2025.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to do the predictions that you made this time last year and see how you did. So we'll actually keep score and see your one lost record. And of course, it's
I know
easy
it's pretty
to,
good
in hindsight,
for 2023. I was pretty good. I'm not
you were really
convinced.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not as convinced about 24, but I'm sure you're going to put me in my place, and you'll keep me honest there in terms of what I said this time last year.
Yeah. So we'll go one by one through your predictions and then have a little fun with them or see if they came true or to what degree. And then, of course, next month for our podcast in January 2025, we'll have your new predictions, which should be a lot of fun as
I
well.
better get studying, so go on.
All right. So what did we go through? You talked, first of all, a lot about the property market and what would happen if interest rates came down versus if they didn't come down. So one thing you said that I would say is a prediction, you were leaning on the side that rates wouldn't, this is quoting you directly, wouldn't come down as quickly as people wanted. So what do you think about that prediction?
I think I was pretty much on the money in two ways, actually. Sorry, I'm going to give us a little pat in the back for that prediction, because basically, with the interest rates, right, there's two elements to it, right? There's the European Central Bank, and then there's the banks here in Ireland. So when the European Central Bank make their decision, it then becomes how quickly do the banks here pass on the reduction, okay? So the European Central Bank were slightly slower in bringing their rates down than was anticipated. It speeded up towards the end of the year. I think there's been three cuts, right? And then the banks didn't follow as quickly as the European Central Bank done. And again, that's changed. There's been a couple of banks have reduced their interest rates in the last month or so. So the reason being, the banks are arguing, though, when the rates were going up, they didn't increase. And this is what I was predicting. And I said the banks didn't bring their rates up as quickly as this European Central Bank. I knew in my heart that they weren't going to bring them down as quickly as the European Central Bank, and they were going to make that very point. So out of 10, I'm going to give myself a 9 out of 10 for that prediction.
All right. Yeah.
I didn't
I
have the
would say
exact
so.
science. Well, I'll stand by that now. Sorry, I feel good about
Yeah,
myself.
because exactly what the European Central Bank does really doesn't affect the property or mortgage market until local Irish banks start instituting that reduction. And that was it's just started happening, right? Towards the end of the year.
I do believe that's going to, well, it's going to help consumers in a number of ways, because the way when the rates went up, it kind of took some of the non-pillar banks. The non-pillar banks would be the banks that aren't the AIB, Bank of Ireland, Permanent TSB, the banks that didn't have their own deposit bank, shall we call it. They were relying on European. They were relying on borrowing their money for Europe, and that became so expensive for them that it pretty much priced them out of the market. So when rates are now going to come down, it's going to be good for the consumer, not just based on how quickly the other banks, but other banks that weren't really a runner are now coming to the table, whereby they actually, so it's going to give the consumer more choice. So it is good news. And they are expecting rates to come down further, but we'll hold off my prediction on that until January.
Yeah, hold off on that thought, huh?
Yeah.
Here's another one that you talked about, inflation. And you said if inflation won't come down as quickly as predicted, then rates won't come down. So that probably follows up with the first prediction. But I think you won that one.
Yeah, it was kind of in truth, the rates don't come down if the inflation hadn't been brought under check, and the European Central Bank seem pretty confident now that inflation is under control, and I think that can be borne out in the shops, and things aren't going up at the price they were, which is really all an indication or a fallout of the excess money those COVID times. Like all that inflation was as a direct result of what happened in COVID, all the money that was being pumped into the country, and um,
Mm,
it took a year or a year and a half to kind of try to get that back under control, and that's what interest rates
mm.
used to do that, you know.
Okay, so you're basically 2-0 so far. So here's another
Okay.
one that
Yeah, okay,
here's
come on.
another one. This one
Bring it
is
on. Bring it on. This is where I'm going to
so
fail now, yeah?
you said if rates don't come down, which we established they really didn't until the end of the year, Dublin will show 0% price increase for property.
I got that one
How,
badly wrong, right?
how do you do? How do you do on that one, John?
Okay. Yeah, that that I got, and I just felt, and I'll explain where my thinking was. Okay, my thinking was that the rates had gone up significantly last year. Okay, and now I'm putting my hand up. I did get this wrong. Rate the prices did go up, and in a year in Dublin they've gone up by almost 10%. So I couldn't have been more further wrong. I'm going to give you my logic. I'm trying to defend myself here. The logic for my choice and my thinking, and then basically why it seemed. If I was to put a layman's economic interpretation as to what happened, I'll give that. Basically, my thinking was that if the rates had gone up by nearly 4% in the year previous, and the house prices had not basically, they hadn't fallen, but they hadn't gone up. They kind of gone up for a very small amount. So I figured if the rates weren't going to come down, you would see more of the same, so that the prices would
Yeah.
just be plateauing. My instinct, if I could find it, and again, this isn't backed up with any research or any data. This is just maybe a layman's interpretation of what might have happened. I have a feeling that a lot of the man on the street, shall we call it, who would the expectation was out there that rates were going to go down, right? And they were almost saying, okay, rates going down, prices are going to go up. The supply gap is still so huge. So it just, because the fear of rates going up was gone, the demand went up versus, and the supply was, so that would be my only way of rationalizing it. But we can definitely say
Yeah.
I got that wrong, okay? Because I didn't, and I don't think anyone was calling that the prices with the properties would go up
No.
as they did in the last year. So um, yeah, no, and obviously I'm hearing that on the cold face when I'm talking to clients who are telling me about
Yeah.
bidding wars, and it's going up 100 grand more than the asking price. You kind of, mother of God, like,
Yeah.
when is this going to?
Super heated.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so. And then you did couch your prediction with this, which it makes it not a 0 out of 10, but maybe a 5 out of 10. You said
Okay.
if rates come
Thank
down,
you. What did I
yeah,
say?
you said if rates do start coming down, there's you still were concerned, or you still noticed the gap between supply and demand. So you thought if rates start going down, Dublin would go up in prices. Dublin would go up about 3 to 4%. So you were halfway, you halfway covered
Okay.
your
Well,
bet.
look, thank you for rescuing me there. But I the rate the prices, and but the prices were going up even before the rates came down. By the way,
Yeah.
it has accelerated towards the end of the year in line with kind of the European Central Bank rates coming down. So maybe, yeah, we'll take a 5 out of 10 on that one, basically, rather than a zero.
Yeah, yeah. And then
We'll,
here's another one that I
yeah.
think you probably got right. You said because of the supply and demand gap and prices escalating so fast in Dublin, more people would start looking for homes outside of Dublin, whether it was a suburb or another city.
I'm not. I don't have any hard data to prove or disprove that particular um, assumption. My instinct was that more of my clients are still looking to are back in Dublin. But strangely, I thought they'd be moving outside of it. Um, so I certainly wouldn't be claiming a victory on that particular prediction, but I couldn't say I was wrong either. I don't really have the
Yeah,
data
yeah,
to actually to back that one up. That was me seeing. I thought I remember thinking that at the time, where people who were able to borrow X, well, they were getting better value for what they could borrow outside of Dublin, and I thought that
yeah,
would increase the prices outside of Dublin at a greater level than the prices in Dublin
yep,
because of if the interest rates weren't coming down. So yeah, probably got that one wrong really as well because well, from what I'm seeing, the prices are going up in Dublin, which means more people are looking to buy in Dublin, so they're not moving outside of Dublin. That we're speaking in
Well,
general.
you did mention, there's other cities, but you mentioned mostly people are looking, 20, 30 kilometers, basically commute distance to
Yeah,
Dublin. And so that's like the Dublin metropolitan area, right? But
yeah,
people are looking affordability on the edges or a little bit outside, right?
absolutely. But I was probably more talking about the edges. The real price ranges have gone up in the sort of
Yeah.
in the city. So yeah, we're going to chalk that down as not being absolutely on the money, but not being disturbingly wrong either, shall we say?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I would say you are about, let's say, 7-3 for predictions this year, which is you were about
I'll take
90%
that.
last year. So
Oh, then
70% is
okay, so
pretty damn good.
I'm going downwards, am I? Okay. Um, she wins it. I think I got the big ones right though.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, great. Those are the predictions following up, seeing how you did for 2024. And then in January 2025, we'll have all your crazy, interesting prognostications for the next year, which everyone will look forward to, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Well, no, again, ultimately, I know we're having a bit of fun with this, but it is about giving good information in maybe in a lighthearted way, whereby we're giving people my thoughts. And again, I always qualify by saying I'm not an economist, but I do have my ear to the ground in terms of what's happening on a day-to-day basis. And ultimately, and I know buying a home is never about buying at the, and I say this day in, day out, it's not buying it at the right time. You're buying a
Yeah.
home, you're taking a long term view on it. You take a long term view of buying a home, whether your house is worth 50,000 more next year or 50,000 less next year, it doesn't make any difference because you're going nowhere. So, to know when the perfect time to buy houses, you need a crystal ball. You don't have one. So, you're buying a home. Is it near schools for children? Is it near your family? Is it near your jobs? Is it
Yeah.
near your hobbies? Is it near good infrastructure? And ticking those boxes is for me is the most fundamental thing. So what we're doing here in a kind of lighthearted way is saying, well, where do we feel the market's going to be next year? We'll we'll keep people waiting for January for those thoughts, but ultimately it is about understanding where you are and then making decisions fully backed with
Mm.
good information, or the best available information that you can work with.
Yeah.
Kind of stats, So listen, everyone have a great holiday and look forward to sharing all and more information next year. Oh God, 2025! I hate saying that; it's
It's
scary.
here, 2025. It's right here.